Do rock layers accumulate quickly or slowly? Welcome to Creation Basics, where our goal is to make God's creation part of your everyday conversation. And in today's episode, we're going to continue a series and feature number 3 of 10 instances where evolutionists have changed position on a major concept that's part of the creation evolution controversy towards more of a creationist viewpoint. Now, please understand, I'm not saying that they've switched to believe in biblical creation over an evolutionary story. I'm just highlighting this to show you that science is revealing creationist interpretations of facts that we see in God's world are better understood according to God's Word. So, today's example is large-scale catastrophes in geology. And our question is, does science support slow or rapid deposition and accumulation of rock layers? Now, you might remember being taught in school that, sedimentary rock layers, the ones with those fine layers supposedly got laid down slowly, 1 or 2 incredibly fine layers per year until they added up to the massively thick layers we see all around the world. And of course, this was supposedly one of the main evidences that convinced geologists that the world wasn't roughly 6,000 years old as the Bible teaches. Of course, biblical creationists have always argued that the vast majority of those layers got laid down during the Great Flood recorded in Genesis 6-9. So it must have happened fairly quickly. Now, at one time, any mention of catastrophism pertaining to geologic processes was largely mocked and ridiculed as religious, and it was unscientific in the mainstream geologic community, which almost unanimously conformed to the views of a man named Charles Lyell, who wrote a book in the early 1800s that championed uniformitarianism, the idea that the present is the key to the past. He argued that the rates of deposition we see in lakes and rivers and oceans in the present must have always been. And so this is how the sedimentary layers, containing fossils we see all over the world must have been laid down. And no matter how much creationists have pointed out to what they consider obvious evidence that vast sections of the Earth's rock layers must have been formed quickly during a catastrophic flood, things like polystrate fossils, for example, which are basically fossils like trees that extend through meters of sediment. So we're obviously buried quickly, not slowly. I mean, no matter how much this and much more evidence was shown, creationists were basically shunned and banned from secular science journals because of the connection to the flood account written by Moses in the Bible. And this was obviously Lyell's goal in the first place. I mean, how do we know that? Well, he actually admitted that his chief goal was to, quote, free the science of geology from Moses. In one of the letters that he wrote. Lyell was a trained lawyer and in opposition to the biblical account and argued against the idea of Noah's flood having laid down the rocks and fossils. But today, the facts have become so obvious in favor of certain rock formations having been formed by rapid deposition that many evolutionists have admitted it and have switched to what's now called neo-catastrophism, new catastrophism. One of the first was the professor of geology at the University College of Swansea, Derek Ager, he's now deceased, who said about polystrate fossils, "We have allowed ourselves to be brainwashed into avoiding any interpretation of the past that involves extreme and what might be termed catastrophic processes. We cannot escape the conclusion that sedimentation was at times very rapid indeed." And by the way, Ager was no friend of creationists. But it seems many modern Earth scientists are rather, unkind to Lyell's ideas now. No less than Warren D. Ullman, the director of the Paleontological Research Institution of Ithaca, New York, and the adjunct associate professor of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at Cornell University, said the following, quote, Lyell also sold geology some snake oil. He convinced geologists that all past processes acted at their current rates, that is, those observed in historic time. And this extreme gradualism has led to numerous unfortunate consequences, including the rejection of sudden or catastrophic events in the face of positive evidence for them for no reason other than they were not gradual. Wow. And an idea that convinced many Christians the earth was millions of years old is now called snake oil by modern evolutionists. Christians should have believed the Bible. Again, this doesn't mean that secular geologists have embraced the concept of a global flood. They believe now that there were many large floods, not just one big one. but it does show that catastrophism is evident in geology and how the philosophical bias against the Bible blinded science to obvious conclusions for many years. So, the answer to our question, does science support rapid deposition and accumulation of rock layers? Yes, it does. Hey folks, Calvin here. If you've been watching this program for a while now, have been blessed by the content, understand the importance of biblical authority, and have the means, please consider giving a one-time gift or becoming one of our monthly supporters by clicking that link below. And even if you don't, keep watching. Our goal is to equip the average believer to be able to share the gospel more frequently and effectively by making God's creation part of your everyday conversation. Stay blessed.